public is invited to speak on any agenda item and any other items that pertain to the Planning Commission. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. If you choose to speak during this period, you will not be allowed to speak again when the specific item is being considered in order of the agenda. And please sign in if you choose to speak at the table. Thank you.
All right. I guess we'll go ahead and open up public comment. Does anybody have public comment to make not related to an agenda item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to item 3, approval of absences. Can I entertain a motion for approval of absences for 10/18, Commissioner Munoz?
I move we approve the absence of Commissioner Munoz from 10/18/23.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, moving on to item 5, consent public hearing. We're going to do 2 separate groups. Can we go ahead and?
Missed the minutes.
Did I miss
the minutes?
Where's that at?
Commissioner.
Oh, you're right, sorry. Just trying to get out of here. Item 4, approval of minutes. Can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes for October 18th?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes on October 18 as presented by staff.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, now moving on to the consent public hearing items. Item 5, we've got Commissioner Hendricks going to abstain from item 8. Can we go ahead and have you step out, and we'll do item 8 first, if that's all right? Then we'll come back for 2 through 7 and 9.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Mark Orozco with Development Services. I'm going to be reading consent item number 8 for under plats. Plat for Royal Oak South Subdivision, final plat, 20.26 acres, located west of Rand Morgan Road and west of McNorton Road. The plat has met TRC, Technical Review Committee, comments and the Texas Local Government Code. Staff does recommend approval for this item.
All right, any commissioners have questions for staff on item 8? Seeing none, go ahead and open the public hearing for item 8. Anyone like to make comment on item 8? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion for item 8.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item 8 passes. Someone let him back in. We don't have the easy little back room where you can hear what's going on. All right, if you will continue items 2 through 7 and 9.
Continuing with plat item number 2, Laughlin Subdivision, Block 1, Lots 9B and 9C, replat of 0.5 acres, located south of Houston Street and west of Carroll Street. Item number 3, Beach Portion, plot Block 11, Lots 6R and 7R, it's a replat of 0.23 acres, located at Satchel Street and Mesquite Street. Plat item number 4, Lindale Park, Section 2, Block 23, Lot 17R, replat of 0.2 acres, located south of Sorrell Street and north of Swatner Drive. Item number 5, Port Aransas Cliffs, Block 416, Lot 25R, replat of 0.21 acres, located south of Rope Street and west of Aransas Street. Plat item number 6, Fifth Quarter Industrial Park, Unit 2, Lot 6 through 10, final plat of 11.34 acres. This is located on north of Bates Road and west of Flato Road. Item number 7, Saratoga Ridge preliminary plat, phases 1 through 4, plus or minus 257 acres, located east of Old Brownsville Road and north of Saratoga Boulevard. Item 8, no, we read item 8. No, item number 9, Pool Estates, final plat of 6.5 acres, located south of Grand Road and east of Rudick Drive. Plats have met the Technical Review Committee comments and the Texas Local Government Code. Staff does recommend approval for all plats.
All right, any commissioners have questions for staff on items 2 through 7 and 9? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Would anyone like to make public comment on items 2 through 7 and 9? Seeing none, close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we pass items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9 as presented by staff.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 10, briefing on UDC text amendments.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Happy November. Hope all of you had a great Halloween. Just for the record, I'm Andrew Demas with Development Services. Happy to be back in front of you. So tonight, what we're going to be going over, as you know, every 2 years, the state legislature convenes, and they will, of course, amend state statutes that affect every municipality within our great state of Texas. That being said, as those statutes change, all types of rules trickle down, and we now have to make amendments as municipalities to come into line with those new laws. So tonight, I'm briefing you on a couple of them that will have, of course, an impact on the UDC. Nothing, what I would say, is overly major changes. They're actually coming into line with some of the things that we had already started to talk about when it comes to public notices. But that being said, of course, one is Senate Bill 929, and you don't have to memorize everything on the screen. What it boils down to is that if a municipality is creating a nonconformity by either a rezoning or a change to code, that property owner and the tenant, so let's say, for instance, it's a shopping center, and that shopping center becomes nonconforming, then the property owner and each tenant within that shopping center would receive a letter. What the state has gone further and done is actually outline the type of font, the timing, how many days in advance, that being 10 days, which is standard as it is that we already do for zoning and plats that require public notice. But it makes explicitly clear the language that has to be used, and that's why it's in all caps and bolded for you on the screen. Additionally, we added some language to the UDC to make it clear what section of the Texas Local Government Code we will be referencing. As you know, we try to stay away from copying and pasting right out of the statute into the UDC because we don't know 2 years from now, statute could potentially change again. It's far simpler to recognize the code section that change has occurred to. In this case, it's 211.007 for your standard notices that we make already for when it comes to public notice plats, and then adding a section for letter B, which again outlines who receives a notice when it comes to nonconformities, when they receive it, and again, the code section, in this case, it's 211.006. That from the previous slide is outlining 14-point font, 10 days in advance. Here's the language you have to use, and that's why it's referencing that section there. Now, moving forward, we added one more line. Of course, the UDC breaks down very similarly when notices have to go out, how they would be notified. You know, for zoning cases, we have a sign that's posted, and it goes in the mail. For plats, it's just in the mail and published. We added a line to the bottom of this section when it comes to content, just to reemphasize, also for the purposes of reminding staff when they're going through their notification period of making those documents, be sure and reference that code section 211.006 of the Texas Local Government Code. Any questions so far? Okay, so moving on to the next one, which is House Bill 3699. This too comes into play when it speaks about the supposed plat shot clock. So as you know, we have a 30-day period in which we process all plats. Those now come into 30-day increments. Before, back in 2019, when we made the first amendment, it was either you pick 30 days, which is the statutory requirement, or you can pick a quote-unquote alternative timeline. Most folks would elect a roundabout 45, 50-day process. Now what the state says is you have to go in 30-day segments. So regardless of it's 30, and then if you want additional time, you have to submit in writing or check on the application when you submit your plat, I'm opting for 60 days. So that, in addition to that, what comes into play is how we intake plats, meaning when a person, your engineering firm or you as an applicant submit your plat application, you're also having to specify what we are required to intake to call your plat complete. Now, that's a magic word, completeness. We have a whole section in our Infor system called a completeness check for a reason. What that means is we're outlining you have to have your drawing, you have to have your stormwater quality management plan, you have to have your deeds, everything that is part of that application. Why is that important? You would think, why am I talking about a form in front of the Planning Commission? Because the state now says that the chief elected body of a municipality has to essentially sign off on what a city creates as a list for quote-unquote completeness, because that completeness check triggers those 30-day cycles or 60-day cycles. That's why it's extremely important. It's not as simple as I turn in an application, the clock starts. Not quite so fast. It has to be complete. Again, that boils down to the application and the list. So what do I mean when I say list? Let me pull out the keyboard. And we've gone ahead and created a list for each plat type. You have your application. These are the three main things that you have to have on your application. We've outlined the plat type. Are you a master prelim? Are you a minor? Are you a standard final plat? Or you could potentially be amending and vacating. But why am I saying all this? We've put the X's across the screen on when these type of documents are required. That also includes our handy-dandy templates. That's something that we've been rolling out over the past year, and it's going to get to a point to where now it's a mandatory requirement. What does that template mean? It means that on our website, we have templates created how each plat is supposed to look. Why is that important? One, it speeds up definitely the amount of review time. A staff member that's checking for completeness doesn't have to look for a specific signature block and scanning across that page. Those seconds do count. It speeds up. There's consistency among that template, and of course, it simplifies the whole process. Part 2, owner authorization. Part 3, your deeds. Additional items, this is when we get into your tax certificates, which of course you have to turn in before your plat can even be recorded. Things like peak hour trip forms. Then we get into the nitty-gritty of, are you a phased type of plat? Then we get into your drainage, your type of FEMA flood zones, everything that has to be outlined on the plat. Now, again, why am I going over this very long list with you? The purpose is that, again, the state says the city must essentially codify the list of what will make a plat, quote-unquote, complete. And on top of that, we have to publish it on our website, make sure everyone has access to it. So this very language is going to be directly inserted into the UDC. And I'm sure as you saw your documents before the meeting, it's pretty much a copy and paste of that very list directly into the draft ordinance of everything that's required. Now, again, it's not that all of these items are going to be required in every single situation, but to start of the fact that you may be required to turn some of these in. Of course, we were talking about this before the meeting, a peak hour trip form. If you're platting a cell tower, obviously there's no occupancy, there's no traffic generated. We can potentially waive that requirement, but we have to start from a place of it is first required. Then in discussion with staff, we can determine if it's truly applicable. But that's why we start here with the X's and O's of what plat type requires each item. So going back to the PowerPoint, we'll move on to the next slide. And that is why here we say list on separate spreadsheet. Of course, in the ordinance, it actually has every single one of those lines. And the purpose of tonight is just to breach the conversation. So you now have plenty of time between now and the next Planning Commission to really get into that list if you have specific questions, and we can absolutely go over it. Secondly, it's notification requirements. Again, that handy-dandy thing comes up with publishing the list on the city's website and the code section which is applicable, 212.0081. And then lastly, getting into, again, application completeness, putting that code section in one more time. It's very helpful for staff as a constant reminder when they're doing their own intake, what code section they must refer to within Texas Local Government Code. I know tonight's just a briefing, so we won't really get into a staff recommendation, but those are the two major updates to the UDC yes, it's more of a housekeeping item, but we want to make sure and brief you first before we get into the public hearing phase. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Just to confirm, you said the very next planning commission, this will come back for approval?
Correct.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff regarding the briefing?
Just a quick one. You mentioned the checklist. Is there a checklist now that this is replacing, or is this just a brand-new checklist?
There is a informal checklist that we have that's more of an internal document we use to make sure all the boxes are checked. We do have a published checklist that's probably a good 4 years old. And now was the time to not only reassess how do we do business as a department, but two, what are the common things that we've left off that we really should be asking for?
I think you just may have answered this, but I just want to confirm, so I know we'll be reviewing over the next week, but is it accurate to say this is not just taking forms you already have and putting them online because you have to, but you're also making some tweaks to the forms? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And for instance, we never had a list of what was required on a utility plan. So we had to come up with that
Okay.
list. So you'll see some differences.
Okay, thank you.
Well, with that being said, when he said that we're going to have some, it presented again, one of the things that I know that has happened in the past where we get a lot of the people come and state that they didn't get their notices on time, and being the fact that it's the 200 feet, within the 200 feet, I just want to find out if there's anything that we can do something that could prevent a lot of the people coming and making that complaint. I don't know what can be done, but the fact is that we do get quite a bit of people that are coming in and stating they didn't get notice, or they found out from their neighbor, or whatever that, comes in. So I don't know if there's something that could be changed or added, or what can be done if.
Well, there's several things that come into play when it comes to public notice. I mean, it's a requirement, but what ends up coming into play is one, we're relying on the Postal Service of when it's going to get there. But two, the most important, it relies on folks updating their information with Nueces County Appraisal District. So many times they may be a new owner. It hasn't been updated on the county rolls yet, and that's the data we're using to actually identify who would receive a notice. Another issue that comes up is it's usually folks just outside the line. So we're drawing our 200-foot ring, and they may be one house over or two houses over, and they'll feel that they were not purposely left out, but they didn't receive a notice, and they're relying on information from their neighbors. Of course, that is why when it comes to zoning, why we put signs on the property, so it's advertising up and down the street. Not so much with plats, because the only time you're having to notice with plats is either it has to be residentially zoned, it has to be a replat, it may or may not have a variance attached to it. That's all of our sidewalk waivers, wastewater waivers that you see from time to time. Those three triggers have to go off for a notice to even happen in the first place. So it's not a regular occurrence that plats will receive a notice. And now the language has even changed to say that if you don't have a variance, so let's say you didn't ask for a sidewalk waiver, you're just doing a replat, you happen to be residential, you don't have to be notified till even after the plat is approved. It's very wonky language. We've taken the stance to always try to do it before the meeting, because otherwise, what's the point? But
I was just taking that into consideration because I've heard a lot of the people complain about that, but, it's just the 10-day period that you sent out the letter within 10 days. I mean, I'm wondering if 10 days is more than enough, because I'll be honest with you, sometimes I get letters sent in late to my mailbox, and I know they sent them earlier. And I call the company up, and they said, well, you need to take it up with your postal service, So I'm just, wondering if that is something that we need to continue to stand on, or if there could be some minor changes on that. That's it. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Demus. We'll move on to Director's Report.
Good evening, Nina Nixon Mendez. I wanted to remind you that our Texas APA Conference is next week, November 8th through the 10th. I have provided an email that I believe Ruth is going to send out or has sent out. She sent it out this evening. That provides a summary of the conference when the registration booths are open, so you can pick up your materials for those of you that have already, pre-registered for the conference. Also, in this email, I noted some of the conference highlights. There is an opening reception on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. So you'll want to pick up your badge, your conference badge, to attend that. There will be a circulator running between the Omni Hotel and the American Bank Center, so that's available. Then on Thursday, of course, the conference begins at 9 a.m. at the American Bank Center. There's a plenary session in the late afternoon on Thursday. And then on Friday, the plenary begins at 8:30 in the morning. Of course, there's conference sessions. There's a keynote around noon at 11:40 a.m. Of course, the conference continues in the afternoon. We did receive notice that the Corpus Christi Historic Preservation Plan is receiving a gold award from the Texas APA. And so the award ceremony is at 4:15, or begins at 4:15. The Achievement Award winners will be recognized collectively in a digital presentation, but if you'd like to come for the photo op, which I thought it would be great if we could, we would like you to be at the Henry Garrett Ballroom at 4 o'clock. And we can get our photo op then. After the award ceremony, there is a reception beginning at 5:45, and that lasts until around 9 in the evening. And those of you that didn't register for the conference, but you would like to come to the awards ceremony, you can do so. No conference registration is required to attend the awards ceremony and the reception afterwards. So I do have the link for the conference schedule, and then I believe Gina has gotten you your confirmation number, but we do have that information again included in this email. But if you have any questions, feel free to call us. And that's all I have to report.
All right, thank you very much. Last item, any future agenda items? No, seeing none, we are adjourned.